No, that's cool.
Yeah, just missing the top of your head.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of glare on that.
Yeah, stop the glare going on it.
You and me both.
Right, somewhere about there. Right, so I'll start. Right, Mark, thanks very much for joining us. I think the cat's already out of the bag, but we have an important announcement to make, and I think it's only right that you should make it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a well-kept secret for a few months now, but we've got there, and the Carp Society have bought Ashmead from us.
That's right, yeah. It must be 7 months or so since, someone, the estate agent first contacted me and said, I know of a lake, and then me and Carl came down and had a look at it, went back, recommended it to Derek that we buy it, and what have you, and then thinking it were going to be a done deal within a couple of weeks, and 7 months later...
These things always take a while, but I remember it was certainly hot and sunny because we were walking around looking at fish when you came down. And here we are now on a cold February morning. So it's
a long time,
but we're there.
Yeah, thank you very much for your patience on it, because they were. I must admit, I was probably the most keenest of all to buy it. But as it were going on, and when the solicitors got involved, and I remember on Christmas Eve, I went into the office and I saw an email from your solicitors to ours, and I was like, Mark's just gonna call it a do and tell us to piss off. But I kind of resigned myself to it not going through then. But I've got to give a massive shout and praise to Sabrina. She's been bang at it almost every day. I've seen her banging her head on the...
She's been fantastic, I have to say.
But to be honest, without her, it probably wouldn't, because it just blew me away, all the hoops, and like I mentioned to you earlier, I don't think our solicitors were... I think they probably tested your patience.
Well, not really. I mean, I used to do a lot of sort of complex property issues working with those when I was with the National Trust, so I'm used to it.
Right.
And I'm used to sort of blocks of land that have a track to them that, no one's quite sure what's going on. So it's, it's all stuff I'm familiar with.
Oh, good
and,
stuff,
from our point of view, the important thing was, as you know, we didn't go onto the open market. We contacted various people through the agent who we thought, A, might be interested in buying Ashmead, but B, might be the right people to run it and look after it for the future, because it's such a huge part of my life and all about our lives as a family, that we were very keen that it went to the right people. And so patience wasn't a problem, as long as things were moving forward, and the Carp Society were making progress. We're delighted that the Carp Society have bought the lake. We really are.
Yeah, we're equally delighted to have it, and like I say, it's one of the reasons we were so keen, apart from it being a lovely lake, is that it's more than just a carp lake. It's a bit of an heritage thing, and we'd like to keep that going and stuff.
Yeah.
So, it must be a bit mixed emotions for you.
It is. It's really difficult. I know you're going down to the lake this afternoon to look at sort of the practical side of it, but from my point of view, I went down yesterday to say my goodbyes, and it's been part of my life for 40 years. I first went down there to fish when I was 15 or 16 years old, and it captured me then. It's where I learned a lot of my carp fishing, and I've always loved the lake since then. And we've owned it now for 15 years, but my connections there go back a lot longer than that. And so handing it is like seeing one of your kids leave home or something like that. It's that emotional. So after yesterday, I went down, and a friend of mine, Dave Page, had just caught the big fully scaled in there at over £30 yesterday morning.
Right.
So I went down. I thought, actually, that's the point at which to shut the gate and not go back. Yeah. So it's been difficult, but it's from my point of view, that's done. That is sort of legacy for us now, and we've got things equally exciting to go and do from now on in, while we're still got some dreams to chase while we're still young enough to catch a few. So that's sort of the mindset really now.
Right. So life moves on, doesn't it? And there's new adventures.
Exactly that.
Afoot,
and a bit of fishing as well, which I'm looking forward to.
People think when you're involved with fisheries that you're fishing all the time, and nothing could be further from the truth, really.
No, that's right. I mean, for the last 7 years, I've only fished Ashmead in the winter, and I've actually, it's a funny thing, but I've paid into the syndicate account and been a winter syndicate member in my own right as an individual, just so that when I go down there to fish, or have gone down there to fish in the winter, I'm just an angler like any other in my mind. Otherwise, you just see a great long list of jobs to do, and it's not the same.
No, I'm like that. If I fish on horseshoe, I just can't get out of work mode. No. So I'm hoping I can get down here and
do a little bit.
Maybe do a bit. Whether it works out like that, you never know and stuff. But you say you've been involved with Ashmead a long time. What can you tell us a bit about Ashmead, perhaps even before it were a lake?
Oh gosh, yeah. So I mean, Ashmead has always been a low-lying area of the Somerset levels, and when they put in the big pumping stations to drain the levels for farming, it remained as the lowest lying, boggiest bit. And there are little pockets of that sort of wetland still dotted around this area of Somerset. So Ashmead is 17 acres of essentially old Somerset sedge.
Right.
And it was originally owned, as far back as I've got records, it was owned by the Duchy of Cornwall, so the Royal Estates. And it's then had a number of owners since. So I first fished it in probably 79 or 1980, when it was owned by a local guy, Tommy Squires, and my mum was the local district nurse.
Right.
And she was nursing Tommy, and it came up in conversation that I fished, and he invited me down. And at that time there was it's called Tom's Pond after Tommy, but that area of the lake was somewhere where Tommy treated it very much as his little corner of the wetland. And you'd see these, they were then double figure fish. So Tommy stocked Ashmead with fingerlings in the early 70s, and by the time I went down there, they were up to about sort of 10, 15 pound.
Right.
And he wouldn't let anyone else fish that little bit of the wetland. That was his area.
Yeah.
And he said to me, you can fish here as long as you don't tell anybody. And back then, it was as a teenager, it was like having my own lake with these, what were huge double figure fish cruising around, and it was so exciting. And then Tommy sold it to a friend of mine, Steve Maynard, and Steve developed Goat Willow as a separate lake within the wetland. In 1995, Steve dug that, and they put 50 fish from the rest of the wetland into Goat Willow as an isolated sort of part of the population. And they grew on in Goat Willow. So in single scale, for example, the biggest fish in Ashmead was stocked into Goat Willow as a 10-pounder in 1995, and I caught that fish at £50. The first time it was a 50-pounder in 2006, it would have been. I caught single.
All right, did you catch it the first time?
The first time it was £50.
Right. Oh, wow,
yeah, so that was lovely.
Bit of karma there. Really.
Bit of karma, exactly. And I mean, she's been up her best weight, sort of just under 58 pound plus. And still going strong. And so, there are fish in Ashmead. There's a fish in there called the grey, which again, a bit of karma. It's one of the old Ashmead fish I have never managed to catch. All the years, I've been there since 15 years old. That fish was in there then as a double figure fish. It got up to 36 pounds. It's still there now, and I have never caught that carp. Right, but that carp is must be 40, 50 years old now.
Your nemesis.
My nemesis, exactly that. And that's what's great about Ashmead is there are the known carp.
Sorry. Yeah, go on.
That everyone knows about, single scale, moon scale, JC, the big commons. But there are lots of fish in there that, every year there are fish caught for the first time that we've never seen before. There are fish in there. There's a fish in there I know was only caught. I've only seen it caught twice, and it went 17 years between captures.
Oh wow!
So you never quite know.
No.
There's always that edge as to what you're actually going to catch, and there are fish in there that probably you'll never catch, even if you went down and fished it on a regular basis for years, like I've done. Mind you, a better angler would probably have caught them all by now. But that area of mystery and excitement, it's always there, and it's from a carp fishing point of view, it's great.
Yeah, it's all part and parcel of the sort of magic and charm of Ashmead, really.
Yeah.
It makes it what it is, sort of thing. Apart from the layout, the layout of it's pretty unique as far as I'm aware, sort of thing. There's islands and channels. I mean, the people that want to come and chuck 100 yards.
Ashmead's not for them.
They're not going to come.
No,
to
leave the big pits at home. Put away the sort of 3.5 pound test curve rods. You want things like little lash scopes and small reel. But it's all of my carp on Ashmead for the last probably the last 10 years have been caught within a foot of the bank under the rod top.
Yeah.
And they get very spooked by leads crashing in. They get spooked by lines,
Right.
and so the least disturbance you can get away with, the better, really.
Yeah.
So it's very close and intimate fishing. But I mean, the lake is, the whole area is 17 acres. So you've got, a friend of mine measured it a few years ago. I think there's about 3 miles of bank within that
wow.
17
Yeah,
acres.
yeah.
And something that always niggled me when we finished the restoration of Ashmead, and we got all of these channels and islands, I realised there were 29 islands. So for the last sort of 4 or 5 years, I've been walking around trying to find where we could make a 30th. It's a nice round number, but we haven't done that. That's a job for the Carp Society, is to create a 30th island down there at some point. But no, it's unique. It's very, very different to any other lake I've ever fished, certainly, in terms of its layout, and it's ideally suited to being mobile in your fishing and stalking and that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's if that's what you're into, it's a fantastic place to be.
I was sorry when we came down that time, the first time we got into it, it just reminded me of playing on the rivers as a kid. Like in them days, I suppose we were going looking for newts and frogs and stuff, and you're in and out and stuff. It really had a nice feel to that sort of.
Well, when I first went there, when I was 15. 16 years old, I used to go down in the summer in a pair of shorts with a net and a rod and a loaf of bread, and you would just wade out into the reeds, stalking these carp at close quarters, and you would lose yourself for a day.
Yeah.
And when we did the restoration down there, which is a long time ago now when we first bought it, I was very keen to keep that look and feel about it. Because that's what Ashmead and its fishing has always been to me, is that sort of close, intimate contact with the fish. And the idea that when you walk, every time you walk round a corner and peer over a reed bed, the fish of your dreams may just be lying at your feet.
Yeah,
and
you just see it there.
And I still get that excitement. And I love it when you take people down for the first time. When I took you and Carl down last year, and just a couple of times you see a fish and you think, wow, look at that.
Yeah,
it's great.
You just see it swimming in between the wee bits. You're like transfixed on it.
Absolutely. No, it's magical.
Yeah, no, good stuff. It's quite a weedy water.
It's a very weedy water, yes.
Which again is part of the charm of it. There's people that don't like weed.
No.
It's essential, isn't it, really?
It is. So all of my background is in fisheries and in wider nature conservation, really. And that's always been my philosophy at Ashmead, is that the fish there, the carp that are in there, are just part of the natural ecosystem. And the fact they're as big as they are and as healthy as they are reflects the environment they've grown up in. Yeah. And so actually I don't do a great deal of fishery management down there in the way that people think about it nowadays. There's a lot of fisheries now where they're stocked with a single age class of fish, they're fed with pellet, they're dyeing the lake to get rid of the weed, and it's all about just producing fish for the angler to catch. Ashmead, the way we've managed it, is very different. We've concentrated on the ecology and on nature conservation, actually. And we found that if you leave the weed in there, you've got a stable environment without problems of algal blooms and that sort of thing. And you end up with really rich wildlife. So, there's every species of bird you can imagine is nested down there or overwintered down there. We've got rare dragonflies. There's lots of really good wildlife. And the fish are just part of that mix. So the fish are really hard to catch because there's so much natural food for them. They don't need to look at a boilie or a bait. And they're so tuned into their environment. And the weed is a challenge from a fishing point of view. But like I say, that's one of Ashmead's charms. There are ways around it. And you can, if you've got 4 or 5 days down there or a long weekend down there, you've got time to prepare spots and clear spots. And the fish will come in and feed literally at your feet. And if you hook a carp at close quarters, the weed really doesn't matter that much.
No.
And generally, the fish will push through weed if you give them time as well. You just need to learn to fish with weed.
That's exactly right.
Which isn't for everyone. No. Ashmead won't be for everyone, but for those that get it, that love that sort of fishing, it's as good as you'll get, really.
Yeah, I think that's the key. You've got to get it because it is unique. It is as it is, and it's as it is for a purpose. And it's no good going down there and wanting the lake to change for you. You've got to
You've got to be,
You've
yeah.
got to
It puts you
immerse yourself
on your
in-
mettle as an
yeah.
angler, really, and it's challenging. And I've again in my own fishing, I've always looked for that challenge. And if you go to Ashmead for a session and you catch one fish, that's a great result.
Yeah.
But you can go down. There's a chap went down at the start of the winter syndicate, and he caught the two biggest mirrors in the lake and a 40-pound common as well. So you can have spectacular little sessions down there if you get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's the charm of places like that. I mean, it's all well and good people going to places like, say, with no weed and catching 40 fish in a weekend and stuff. And I don't know. I know there is a place for that, but
Yeah, it's fine. It's what you want from your angling, and I've always thought actually the one of the great joys of angling is it can mean so many different things to different people. There's something for everyone. But for me, Ashmead reflects my own philosophy about fishing, which is it's as much about contact with nature as it is about catching fish. And if you go in with that mindset, there's a lovely guy, Paul Keeble, who's been a regular visitor of ours, and he's a brilliant wildlife photographer. And he'll come down, and sometimes on a 5-day visit down to Ashmead, he'll spend 3 days just going around with his camera taking photographs of the wildlife. And that's sort of the mindset really to go into Ashmead with. And then you'll find one of the big fish and you'll see it, and that's it. You'll be obsessed with trying to catch it.
it's your
And there's always a chance.
Yeah. I've seen on the website some of the the wildlife photos, and it's quite spectacular, isn't it?
It is. And everything we've created down there. Probably the things I'm most proud of are is the fact that the angling is funding and underpinning all of that wildlife and conservation management, and that makes angling in itself a much more meaningful pastime than just catching fish. And I love that, and the fact that we gosh, how long ago is it now? 15 years ago. I started planting up one particular island down there with habitat for reed warblers. And last year I went down there and recorded them while they were nesting. And, for a little podcast I did for a friend of mine, Garrett Fallon. And it's come to life. What was a barren area of the lake is now really rich with nesting reed warblers. And angling has sort of underpinned that. There's that connection there. I'm probably rambling a bit, but you know what I mean. It's just a lovely, lovely place to be. You will get the chance to take photographs of kingfisher sitting on your rod.
That's it.
And that's very special.
I also think it's a good advert for angling for people who perhaps have a negative view of angling, who thinking somewhere it's cruel or this, that, and the other. When you see places like that and the sort of benefits of the wildlife in general, you can show people that and say, look, if it weren't for anglers, you wouldn't have this. You wouldn't be seeing the reed warblers and the kingfishers and what have you.
No, I think you're exactly right. And it was wading round Ashmead as a teenager that I fell in love with carp fishing in particular. I'd been an angler since I was 6, but I fell in love with carp fishing, and I fell in love with Ashmead and the wildlife there. And that inspired me to spend the last 30 years plus of my life working in nature conservation. And if Ashmead can fire me up, or could fire me up back then as a young lad to get involved in wildlife and nature and countryside management, all that great stuff that I've been privileged to work with over the years, then if one other person goes down there and gets inspired in the same way, that's got to be a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
What are some of the highlights in your time since you owned it then?
Gosh, 40 years I've been going down there. Since I've owned it is easier. My one of my first double-figure carp came out of Ashmead. That's a real highlight. I can still picture every lunge of that fish as I played it as a teenager. But certainly in our ownership, there are so many and so many good friends we've made through the privilege of sort of being having the stewardship down there and looking after it. Chile catching single scale when he caught that, and I think it's still his UK PB. But that was the first time she was caught after we'd finished all of the restoration work, and he caught it from a part of the lake where prior to us starting that work there was literally no water. It was just black sludge and an inch of slime, and to go down and early dawn and sit with Chili and a chap, Alan Gaylard, who used to be involved in the lake back then, and the three of us sitting there laughing and smiling, and then every now and again just looking at this fish as we photographed it and put it back into the lake was just fantastic. It just showed that the restoration had gone well to me. And likewise, the first fish I caught there was after the restoration. I was wandering around on my own with a net, and I caught a fish on a floater in Tom's Pond, where, again, when we bought the lake, there was an inch of water over 8 feet of black sludge, and it was just dead. And after the restoration, it flooded up with rainwater, and I stalked a fish that's called Psst, one of the big commons, and it was just over 30 pounds, and it was a lovely summer's evening, glowed in the sunlight, this fish, as I slipped it back, and that was sort of a pat on the back that the restoration was done. And that fish now is still there. It's still swimming around. It's now over 40 pounds in weight.
Right.
And like a lot of the Ashmead fish, it's caught once a year. Sometimes twice a year if it gets particularly careless. But moments like that. And since we've been booking it out, it's the joy of showing people around. It's the look on their faces the first time they see it, the look of confusion when you've walked around once. They've got no idea where they are on the lake because it's so complex. And then going down and that moment where they've caught a good fish and the phone goes and you go down and help with a photo. All of that is, you can't replace it from an angling point of view. But there are as many memories from a non-angling point of view. So things like, the first time I found a chiff-chaff nest down there. And every year we used to get the kids from the primary school down to have sort of nature days. And I always loved that, young kids catching bugs and watching dragonflies and things like that. And I always got them doing a little bit of fishing as well, which is lovely. And then our own kids, we've... when we bought Ashmead, we had 2 children, and when we first moved down here, we had 2 children. We bought Ashmead shortly after Alistair, our 3rd child, arrived. So I've got a photograph, which actually I put up on the Ashmead website the other day, of all of us crammed into the bivvy. So there's myself and Shona and the 3 kids, and Alistair's just a baby on her knee. And that was taken on the day that we had agreed with Steve Maynard that we were going to buy the lake. There's then a second photograph where Alistair's then, he must be a year old, I suppose, which is when that was the day we'd actually bought the lake and signed the paperwork. And then the last photograph I put up on the website on the news section was the kids now, and Alistair, the youngster, is 19. I lose track, he's 19 now. And he's taller than me. And that's our life as kids. And things like their birthday parties, every year we're out in the boats having weed fights and building dens on islands. And so, it's just been part of our family home in a way. And that's been magical. You can't replace those sorts of memories.
Fantastic. No.
And I know I'm talking like I'm going to tear up because it breaks my heart in a way that it's no longer our little haven. But we've got so many happy memories down there. It's lovely.
Did I read somewhere you have cows on there at certain times of the year?
Yeah, we did have. There's a painting up on the wall. Let's just spin this. Bear with me, folks. Where are we? There we go. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that's a painting we had done of Georgie, who was one of our Highland cattle.
Oh, is he one of them?
And they've gone now. Now that the wetland has gone, we don't need them anymore. But they've been with us for a long time. We've had a fold of Highland cattle, and we've had calves off them. And the 2 older ones, Annie and Georgie, we've had those now for 15 years.
Right.
And last week they left as well. They've gone down to a lovely little small holding down near Charmouth, where someone's going to care for them down there now.
Oh, good stuff.
So but they were all part of the wetland management.
Right.
Really. Very good for grazing and
that's what I was thinking,
stirring up the mud and things like that. And they create really good little microhabitats for insects and so on. They spread wildflower seeds. They do a lot of good things, and they taste fantastic. I shouldn't say that. But when we've had a male calf, the odd one has ended up in the freezer, and the steaks are really good.
Oh, bless it. The way you run it, it's run on a booking system, like is it private groups or separate groups? Is it up to 8 anglers?
Up to 8 anglers, which to us always felt enough. It meant that, well, two things really. One, with 8 anglers on there, you've always got room to move swims 2 or 3 times if you want to. So you've got that freedom to fish, and you won't be treading on each other's toes. But also from a wildlife management point of view, it means there's a low pressure on the bank, and swims may not get fished for week after week, so the grass has time to recover. You don't need constructed swims, or we didn't think so. And the wildlife just gets room to breathe as well, so it just works really well from both a conservation and an angling point of view.
How does it start when they first come down? Do they have a draw, or
It's
is the lake separated into? Because there's no swims there.
There's no swims.
Is it on like a grid, and somebody says, right, I'll choose that area?
Yeah, we have sort of a map of the lake that's on the website, and there are areas. Sort of North Goat is a length of bank on the north side of Goat Willow, and that bank is, how long? Maybe 50 yards long, with half a dozen swims along it, and someone will pick that area,
right,
if you like. After we normally do a draw. But interestingly, the groups. So the way we've always run it is that we try and find a group coordinator, and they bring a group of friends down, is the way it works. But you always get individual anglers who want to come down as well. So we've had weeks, Shona's does all of the admin of that, because it would be chaos if I got involved. And Shona's always had what she's called her singles weeks, where she'll fill a week up with individual anglers until it's full. And then she'll release another week for individual anglers. So you don't have to necessarily be part of a group to come down. But what we've found over time is that quite a lot of those groups are people, they met as individuals, really got on well, fallen in love with Ashmead, and they then come back as a group in following years. And you think, that's it, we've got it right if that's working. So what I was going to say is, groups do tend to do a draw, particularly if they're individuals coming down. There's always a draw to make sure people have got, freedom to pick the swims and sort themselves out. But more and more, the regulars who've been for a long period of time just say, leave me out of the draw, I don't want to get involved.
Right.
And why is that? And so, well, it means by the time you get to me, there are 7 swims have been taken, and I've got all of the rest of it. And it's not about picking a swim as such, because the fish are very mobile, they're spread out all over the place. It's much more a case of trying to work out where the fish are, where they're moving to, and you need to take time to do that. So,
Yeah, I mean, it obviously works, and a couple of questions we've had since it's been announced that we're taking over is, are you going to change this and other, and this and the other? And to be honest, apart from the lake being beautiful and lovely and everything, as a business plan, it works as it is. So we're hoping to keep it as you run it so successfully. So, well,
I'm delighted to hear that. That's obviously partly why we're keen that you were the new owners. That's nice.
You won't buy something and then go in and bloody demolish it and stuff. So if I could just put people's mind at rest, is we sort of intend following
the same sort of model.
Yeah, because it works, and like I said, that was one of the attractions of buying it as well. And apart from it being a nice place to own, is that it works. And it took me a bit getting my head round it all. I mean, when we were there last time, when we came back and looked on the map, I was saying to Carl, were we there? And he's saying, that bit but there, and that bit there.
We have had anglers down there who've been completely lost.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of rung up and said, I think I need to get back to my car, and I'm not quite sure where it is. And I've gone down and rescued them. But I mean, it's quite an important aspect of Ashmead for me, actually. It's not just about the conservation and the angling there. It is that link from a business point of view, where the angling is funding the care of the site. And so I've always been really keen. I've never shied away from the fact that, Ashmead has been a business for us. And, the income there has paid for us to have a house and put food on the table and so on. It's a small business, but equally it's funded all of the time I've put in down there and all of the investment we've put in down there in the wildlife. So as a business model, it was very much a case of looking at how angling fitted with the nature conservation and management of the site, and then coming up with a business plan, a business model that allowed all of that to work as a small family supporting business, really. And it's worked really well, because people value what Ashmead provides. It's a breath of sort of fresh air and a space in their lives to decompress from the pressures of modern society and have the excitement of the fishing, but they also enjoy that rich environment, and they're very loyal. Our the people we've had down there, we call them guests, not customers. They are
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
guests.
yeah.
They're friends. They become friends.
Yeah,
And if you get it, then people value that, and
yeah,
they're willing to to invest in it in terms of a week of their time as a holiday angling session, and to pay for it, and that goes back into the management of the site
course
and
it
so on.
does,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's all part of that mix. But as a business model, it works really well, and we've been very, very lucky. And again, I probably haven't said it yet, and it's one thing I really want to say is, we are so grateful to the guests who are friends who we have met through Ashmead and who really have valued what we've tried to do and actually have been part of it.
Yeah.
They're a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And, that more than anything else, more than the wetland itself, I will actually miss those people and
Yeah.
those connections.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of them will still stay friends. That's
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm
they
sure
will,
they
yeah,
will.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when that happens, because it's through organically people who go there, they want to get involved and they want to help and stuff. And the one thing I've learned is that you can only do so much on your own. You need good people to help you, don't you? And
You do.
if you're right with them,
Yeah.
they're right.
And I'm
with
sure
you.
now amongst the people who have fished it with us for years, there'll be a lot of worry and uncertainty.
Yeah, I'm
and,
sure there is.
there'll be people concerned, I guess, about the fact that it's been sold to new owners. But I've always thought that, if we can demonstrate down there that form of fishery management, which is sort of nature empathetic, can work,
Yeah.
you said you're not going to change things. That's fantastic. But it's yours now. But actually, if I've succeeded and shown that it works as a business
Yeah.
model, then why, like you say, why would you change it?
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, it'd be suicide to change it, sort of.
yeah, and it's I take great pride in the fact that the reputation of Ashmead comes from that form of management
Yeah.
in an increasingly commercial world of carp fishing.
Yeah.
People say to me, we like Ashmead because it's not commercial. Well, it always was.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
always
yeah.
a business. But people say, no, but it's not commercial.
Yeah.
And they get it. It's
Yeah.
it's good. It's
Yeah.
There we are.
One of the good things about us having Ashmead as well is we've got Horseshoe, which sort of lends itself to casting a zillion miles and putting 80 million kilos of bait out and stuff. We've got Farriers, which has got its own things, the little Farriers, and then Ashmead's a completely different ball. So I think it helps us encompass not all aspects of fishing, but certainly whatever your sort of fishing requirements are. But as a society, buying Ashmead should help us sort of fulfil them.
I say that angling and the diversity within carp angling is one of the great things about it. And Ashmead is different, and it certainly adds to that. Kind of your portfolio of waters.
It's an option for everyone. I was telling someone the other day who were asking me about it, and I said, like you mentioned, leave your big pit reels at home. I said, you probably only need 30 yards of line or something.
Yeah.
They looked at me like I'd gone mad.
Most of my fishing is where I grew up fishing with Chris Yates, who's a lifelong friend of mine, and obviously he's influenced me a lot in the past, and still does. But I like to use vintage tackle, and most of my fish from Ashmead are caught on an Alcock's aerial centerpin reel that's 100 years old last year, and a Sharp's built cane salmon rod, a little 9.5 foot salmon spinning rod, which is the best stalking rod on the planet, and the fish are caught within a foot of the bank on the simplest of tactics. And it's just about getting to understand the fish and getting in tune with the place, and you'll catch them. That's pretty special.
I've already got myself some 10-foot rods in anticipation.
Yeah.
So,
But it's I've talked a lot about the wildlife side of it, but my God, from an angling point of view, the excitement of seeing the fish of your dreams, and they look huge in those little narrow channels. It's not like casting on a big pit and catching a 50-pounder at range. When they are literally at your feet and they are eyeball to eyeball with you as they take the bait, and then there's that explosion and you feel the full power of those fish as they surge away. It is so exciting. It's fantastic fishing.
Yeah. Is there any specific baits you think work better than is it?
Not really. I mean, it's
naturals work?
Yeah, I mean, bait's always a bit tricky. I've always done really well in the winter on things like maggots, corn, those simple sort of more natural baits, if you like.
Yeah, yeah,
But a good quality boiled bait will catch fish.
yeah,
But it's much more about where you present it and how you present it than it is what the bait
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
You are fishing for, just for one fish for the chance of a take.
yeah, yeah.
And so that's the approach I take. But there's so much natural food in there. There's swan mussels, there's freshwater shrimp, there's great hatches of snails, there's the rudd fry. The fish don't need to look at bait.
Yeah.
So it has to be a good quality bait or a natural bait to attract their attention in the first
Yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah.
But it's much more about this. It's proper old-fashioned watercraft.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
that's what really matters.
Yeah, you touched on other species there. There's some decent rudd and roach in there as well.
There are my biggest Ashmead rudd is £3.4, and there are a lot of £2-pounders in there, which I've caught them fly fishing, all sorts.
Yeah.
There are some chub in there, would you believe?
All right.
Which go up to about £5, the biggest of those I've seen.
Fair size
There are
chub,
perch well over £3. I found two perch over £5 dead in the years I've
Oh, wow.
owned it. So some very, very big perch. There are certainly pike over 30.
Yeah.
But nobody's fished for them.
No.
You see them when
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
spawning, and these are very, very big fish. And there's all sorts in there. There are tench, there are bream. That's the one thing that I find I don't like bream, but they're there.
Yeah.
Not many of them still, but there's a handful of bream up to about £8.
Yeah.
There's a whole mixture. It's a mixed fishery,
Yeah.
but most people come and fish for the carp.
Yeah. A £5 perch is a hell of a fish, though.
Oh, a fantastic fish! Yeah.
And a £3.5 rudd is.
Yeah, so I must admit, out of all of the Ashmead fish, actually, in recent years, the rudd are the ones that have excited me. Actually, rudd and eels. There's some huge eels in Ashmead.
Is there?
Yeah,
Oh, right.
and Terry Lampard always used to say that if you overpressure an eel water, it'll very quickly they'll disappear,
Right.
and you'll stop catching them. So I only fish Ashmead for eels 2 nights a year, and I've caught eels over £6.
Right.
The biggest one I've seen down there was when we were doing the restoration work. I caught an eel of £8.4 in a landing net when it was all drained and we were doing that work. And it's only, it's a couple of fields from the River Yeo. The Bearley Brook runs alongside one boundary, but Ashmead is sort of, as you know, is not connected to any watercourse. So once the eels get in there, which they can do quite easily, they tend to stay and get very big. So yeah, there's lots to explore beyond carp.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And it's quite nice. Quite a few people come down and they'll have sort of if there's a group of carp anglers, they'll be intensely carp fishing, and then they'll just take one day where they'll have a sort of a barbecue and a friendly rudd match to the death or something like that. It's quite nice. Yeah.
Right, that's brilliant. Right, I think we've taken up quite a lot of time. What's next for yourself and Shauna then?
We're going to take time deciding. The kids are now sort of flying the nest, or we're levering them out the door.
Yeah.
So they're off to university, and Ian, our eldest, is working as a sailing instructor on the Isle of Wight. So, it's a line in the sand really for Shona and myself. We've got time now to think about what we want to do. We've got mountains we want to climb. I've got fish I want to catch while we're still young enough and fit enough to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of places we want to travel to, and we'll keep ourselves busy. So there's a couple of books I'm going to have a go at writing.
Right.
And things like that. We've got a bit of the luxury of a little bit of time now to work out what the next steps are. But I think the magnet is drawing us north. Shona's from Aberdeen originally, and she has family from across Scotland, and we have connections with the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I think over the next few years we'll probably end up moving north of the border.
Yeah, I think if I could live one place in the world, I think the west coast of Scotland would do it for me.
It's
just love it up there.
incredibly beautiful. As long as I've got a good midge repellent, I'm happy.
Yeah. I've been up quite a few times, and I've been lucky that I've never had a problem with them. But then you read some people go up there and at the wrong time you get absolutely hammered by it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of our hobbies whenever we go up there is to go and buy fish and chips and sit in the car on the quay at Ullapool and watch people being chased up and down the seafront by the midges. So, but no, it's a very beautiful part of the world and a lot of exploring to do up there. And we'll find things to keep ourselves busy.
I'm sure you will, yeah. Mark, it's been a pleasure, and we wish you all the best in the future, and we thank you ever so much.
Well, thank you for that, but more
sure,
importantly,
yeah.
I wish you every success
yeah.
in the future, and look after my baby.
Hopefully we'll do you proud, yes.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
I'm
We'll do
sure
our
you
very
will.
best anyway, you can rest assured of that.
I'll keep in touch with it all.
Yeah. Matt, thanks very much.
Pleasure,
mate.
Miles. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you.
God, was that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Brilliant.